in my heart, it's actually normal now. Back then, it was just foreign. Like, you don't snitch, and people really were. And I get it, I get it. But if you're from the streets, from where I grew up, it doesn't matter what it is, you can't.
Ruslan.
Isn't it interesting where there's this embedded nature of like, don't tell, and the high percentage of people that tell?
Yeah.
It's like
crazy, bro.
It makes no sense, man. Everyone tells.
Yeah.
Everyone. I mean, people get mad at like Tekashi 6ix9ine and all of that stuff, or lately it's been the Troy Ave situation, which I think is a little different based on the way he tells it. Right? They get into a scuffle, his buddy gets terminated, deleted, and then it was going to come down on him, and then he told in that regard. How do you process the whole like no snitching, no telling thing in hindsight? Like, now that you're on the other side of all this and you're following with Jesus, what do you think of that? Because there is an element of like, if two people go out, commit a crime together, it's foul to then tell on the other person. Like, that's just gross, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of cooperating, or if you're a civilian, like what do you think of that now in hindsight?
In hindsight, now that I'm a believer, I understand Jeremiah 17 verse 9. I think a lot of people didn't understand that, where it says the heart is deceitful above all things, desperately wicked, who can know it? There's a lot of people who believe, I'll die for this gang, and I'll die for my homie, and I won't snitch on you. And they even feel that. But when push comes to shove, the heart is deceitful. So, Troy Ave, for example, is a person who, talked about gangbanging and all kinds of crazy stuff. And he seemed like a very solid individual. From what I hear, his name is the block that he's from, right? Troy Ave. So, but the fact that once the pressure was put on him, he changed, So in my heart, it's actually normal now. Back then, it was just foreign. Like, you don't snitch. And people really were dying over things like that. They will hunt you down, at least my neighborhood. The fact that, people are doing it, seeing it in hindsight, like it just, to me, proves that the Bible is true. Like, the Bible is real.
Do you think that, specifically with the Troy Ave thing, do you think that was way outside of the lines of I guess, the persona? Like, do you think it was incongruent with the image he was putting out there?
I think it was completely outside of the, like what he was portraying, similar to the 6ix9ine situation, where it's like, I'm this super gangster, I shoot at people, but then he turned. And I get it, I get it. But if you're from the streets, from where I grew up, it doesn't matter what it is, you can't snitch on anything. If a cop beats you up, you can't tell on him.
You can't even tell on cops.
You can't tell.
Whoa.
Yeah. So where I'm from, like, you just don't, you never talk about those types of things. You never like, if you really about it, you because what we thought was like, if a person snitches and then say they do for somebody or whatever, then they get caught for it, then they could mess around and beat the case. And then now there's no, you know what I mean? Like, they can go into witness protection, they can do whatever it is, like they can like run away and we wouldn't be able to get to them type of thing. So, the mentality was, no, it's fine. Like, we forgive them and then hold court on the streets, basically.
Whoa. Okay.
So I get it. There's times where people are like, well, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Oh, I was just a driver. Like, regardless, the OGs, if you have actual OGs, they will explain that to you. No matter what, like, this is something that you have to go down for, basically.
What do you think of the theory that the whole no snitching thing came from police culture? Because they would never, if they were to rough somebody up, they would never tell on themselves or hold each other accountable. And then that kind of bled into the streets.
I never actually heard of that.
Okay.
But if that's the case, that kind of makes sense. But I just think it was just a way to, again, putting it back on the Bible. It's like, people don't want their, I guess, the negative images and the bad things to come out. So if they don't snitch, they're able to stay in the dark, essentially.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
but if someone's a civilian and there's no street element, like I got no, you know what I mean? I got a couple buddies that are like reformed, trying to figure it out, but I have no, and someone, robs me or drive or whatever, right? That then isn't extended to civilians, right?
Exactly. It's completely separate. Civilians are civilians. They're going to do that. That's the normal thing to do when you have an issue.
You call law enforcement when something goes down as a civilian,
right?
But not when you're in life,
right? Because you're signing up for that, right? You know what you're getting into. You're doing things and stuff like that. So that's kind of the street element.
What do you think about Tekashi then getting dealt with recently by some guys that weren't even from the area. You know what I mean? That had nothing to do with nothing.
Crazy.
And then that whole situation and how it unfolded. Do you think that was pretty like unnecessary to? And because now those guys are arrested and they're facing who knows how long.
Yeah.
You know, to then involve yourself as it had nothing to do with you. You know, you're now going back to jail.
Yeah, I think again, it's all foolishness. You know, now that I think about it, but I understand. I understand why they would do that. If they're, you know what I mean, if they feel some type of way, I can't tell another person how to feel disrespected.
Sure.
Right? So when it comes down to it, they felt disrespected by seeing him.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I didn't agree with 6ix9ine was when he said, "You guys jumped me, you didn't give me a fair one."
Yeah.
The funny thing is, if you're a snitch, you don't give people fair ones either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like, how can you ask for? Why would I give you a fair one?
Yeah,
So-
the whole point of of you know what I mean is because it wasn't fair.
exactly.
Dang, that's crazy. So going back to your story, you get hit with this kidnapping charge. And I think a lot of folks don't know, like, because I don't know if the laws changed or what, but like these definitions of kidnapping, trafficking, they're not like, I got you tied up in a trunk.
It's not.
That's not what that means. You know, can you unpack like why that was considered quote unquote kidnapping?
Yeah, because we went to rob him, and then he had stuff at his house, right? Because it was like a setup buy type of thing, and then we were like, all right, you get in the car. Right then and there, that's kidnapping. So you get in the car.
Because you're forcing them against their bodily autonomy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you force somebody against their will in any aspect, whether in public, whether whatever, it's kidnapping.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and same thing, robbery too. Like even if you don't even have to get into the house, if you put your foot in the door when they try to close it, that's an attempt on robbery. You didn't have to take anything. Yeah.
Wow, that's an attempt.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the laws, I think, it's with the Andrew Tate thing, they I knew this because back in Oceanside, we had a big sting operation about 12 years ago where a bunch of folks who were pimping and pandering all ended up getting like swept and arrested. A lot of these guys did double digits,
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Because that law changed and it went from pimping and pandering to trafficking.
Yeah.
And then if you go, you're here and then you drive to Vegas and party, that's now you're interstate.
Yes.
Now it's federal. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so these laws are changing in real time and people don't know the law. So then they're not understanding what's happening. Do you think that was possibly it with the Andrew Tate situation?
I believe so.
He just didn't know. He's like, I told her I was going to marry her. And then now she's doing cam business for me, right? In his mind, he just doesn't think there's anything wrong with it.
100%.
Guys, we're going to go over to our Patreon exclusive segment. I'm going to ask Johnny a few more questions specifically about his interaction with his former gang members and how all of that works, because there's a family dynamic there. We're going to talk about the use of profanity and where he kind of lands on that, because that was some of the pushback you guys had when I reacted to his video and a couple other topics. So meet us over on Patreon. Hey, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see the full extended version of this podcast, be sure to sign up for our Patreon community for only $5 a month. It'll really help us continue contextualizing the gospel using YouTube, media, and podcasting. And in exchange, you will get full unedited versions of the podcast, of our daily after party streams, a discount for our merch store, and exclusive access to our private Discord server. It's only $5 a month. The link for Patreon is in the description of this video, as well as the pinned comment below. Again, hit the link in the description, sign up now, and I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.